What's up again, everybody? Today I'm going to give you my raw, unfiltered thoughts on the Grand Archive TCG, a brand new trading card game to the scene and to the space. Before we go far into this and I give you my thoughts, the pros, the cons of the game, where I think it's really excelling and where I think it could run into some issues, I want to start by saying this is in no way, shape, or form sponsored by the company. By the way, the company's name is awesome. It's Weebs of the Shore. That is such a cool company name. But no, they did not reach out to me for this video. I went out and bought this product from my local game store, and I am opening it of my own volition and attempting to get into the game all by myself. This is not sponsored. They did not send me anything of the sort. So if you were worried about, any possible undercurrents of, not truth from this video, I don't know why you would. I generally say what I feel about any card game, period, end of story. But if you were worried about that, rest assured, my thoughts are my own. Now, as we get into this, I also want to say I attempted to go to the store and buy starter decks, and they did not have starter decks because they were all sold out, which, I mean, that's good. It's good that your game is being purchased by people that want to play it and try it out. That's a really good sign. So I just bought a booster box. I said, let's just go for it. So I recorded this over the weekend, and I wanted to do a little voiceover of this because I have some developed thoughts past me just giving my first impressions, and I thought the developed thoughts are actually quite interesting, so I wanted to share them with you. So let's talk about the game first. This is an anime-centric TCG, and their slogan, or their one sentence phrase that they want to share with people to get people hooked in, is it's an anime-centric TCG with Western design philosophies or design tendencies. I can't remember exactly how they say it, but it's essentially this merger of an anime TCG with Western design sensibilities, and that is very apparent when you look at these cards. So I very much was, I don't want to say taken by surprise, but I will say let's just say that. I was taken by surprise by how aesthetically in line everything is with itself, and also how clear and concise the overall verbiage, wording, and templating is for the game. So I'm going to kind of walk you through everything here within these little subsections. And this first one, as I'm talking about it, is the overall aesthetic of the experience. I'm not going to get to the mechanics until probably the next one, but aesthetically, this is a game that knows what it wants to be and knows what it wants to do. And that's a very, very good thing, because one of the things that can really set you apart is being very coherent and very focused in one respect. And particularly in the anime TCG space, I think this is incredibly important because you're going up against very iconic card games right now. Look at the space from the totality of it, right? We have the One Piece TCG, a very beloved anime. We have, My Hero Academia Universes, a very beloved anime currently going on, right? You have Digimon, which I would probably put into the anime TCG category. Of course, Pokemon, but I would not include that in the anime TCG category because it is just one of the big three. Nevertheless, you have these iconic, very clear IPs. And if you want to make a space for yourself in that space, you have to match that level. Now, I do think that there is a benefit that Grand Archive has here compared to those other games. And that is a surprising little pro that some people might consider a con. Grand Archive, aesthetically, is very unified in its theme of being a fantasy-style anime RPG, but it's not tied down or tethered to a specific intellectual property, which means that anyone that likes the fantasy genre or anime, or this beautiful anime style that you're seeing on the screen right now, can latch on and jump in and try this game out. They are more pulled to that. The same thing can't necessarily be said to anyone that wants to pick up a card game and sees One Piece, for example. You may enjoy the art of One Piece, you may enjoy the anime itself, and so you have more connection, but if anyone doesn't necessarily watch One Piece, they aren't going to immediately be drawn to it to the same degree and with the same amount of connection that you could to really anything else. like you're at parity there, right? So the general IP that you have here with Grand Archive is open enough that anyone could approach it. I like anime, cool. I like fantasy, cool. Something like a One Piece TCG can gain more followers, more people to jump into the game based on the people that just like One Piece, which is a pro there. But if you don't like One Piece, it's not like you're going to be pulled into it unless you very much enjoy the gameplay of that specific trading card game. I'm not saying that it's technically better than having an IP. I don't think that's the case. I do think that there's a lot of hard work that has to go into creating your own IP to make it match the established one of something like a One Piece, which is a clear advantage for One Piece. But I also don't think it's that much of a step down, right? Same thing for Digimon, same thing for My Hero Academia. You're going to be able to maybe pull people that really enjoy that intellectual property, but I don't think it's that much of a step down to say, well, I have a really clean, really concise, really focused, really well executed aesthetic here with our own intellectual property, which is a fantasy anime card game. And I think that they did a very good job based on the way that this looks and the way that this feels looking at it and really experiencing it in Grand Archive. So aesthetically, I think it really does do a good job of getting its foot in the door. I mean, it's high quality, the card stock is nice, it's very beautiful, it functions well, it can draw people in as far as like if they like anime, if they like fantasy styled games. It hits on all of those fronts. There's a lot of benefit there. And from like a general mechanics standpoint of the aesthetics, all of it is clear, easy to understand, easy to read. The iconography, I think, is pretty solid overall. You can tell what attack is because it's a sword. You can tell what defense is or health because it's a heart or a shield. You get the picture, right? I do think, and this is a super nitpick thing, I do think the use of the keyword like level being LV, for some reason my TCG brain looks at that and tries to turn it into like life points somehow. And like, that's referring to life points because like LP, but it's not. It's referring to level. Like my brain goes, level is LVL. This is the stupidest nitpick. It does not matter in the long and short of it. It really doesn't matter that much. But overall, I think it's very clear and accessible, and aesthetically it functions. Now, let's talk about the gameplay. And I probably could have led with the gameplay, but I'm just doing this off the cuff. So gameplay-wise, mechanically, this was surprising to me on so many levels. I think it's important right now in the space with so many TCGs coming out and trying to establish themselves as, the big three continue to be the big three and get older and wiser and whatever. It's important to have, I don't want to say gimmick. It's not important to have a gimmick. It's important to have a clear feeling of how your game functions uniquely from other games. And it's not necessarily a gimmick. It's more, my game feels like this. When I play it, when you play it, it feels like this. I'll use Flesh and Blood for an example. Flesh and Blood, when you play it, it feels like your decisions matter. It feels as though you are the character playing your cards. It feels very on brand thematically. And that is achieved through the function of the gameplay and the mechanics, found within. And those mechanics are quite unique to that game, and they tie into the aesthetics. So, hey, it was good I talked about aesthetics first. There you go. I planned it all along. Okay, but Grand Archive also does this by taking some established sort of tropes of the gameplay of just trading card games and tweaking them subtly. So we're not, for example, the resource system. Let's talk about how you actually, use resources to play down cards or to activate cards or abilities. In other games and other TCGs, Magic the Gathering and other systems like this, you have a land-based system. So you find cards in your deck that act as lands, and that's all they do. In fact, that is like the perhaps I would say the most pervasive mechanic for, generating resources, a land-based system. In this game, we have a hand-based system. Yes, I did that. I made that connection. That's pretty solid. A land-based versus a hand-based system. So in this game, just like in a game like Flesh and Blood, you're actually going to be pitching cards from your hand to pay the costs associated with some of these cards. But you're not going to do so in Flesh and Blood in this way. You're going to do something that's mechanically unique. You're going to place these pitched cards down in front of you from your hand into sort of a little zone at the bottom. And if you have, a card that costs 2, then you're going to place 2 cards down. A card that costs 3, you're going to place 3 cards down. A card that costs 5, you're going to place 5 cards down just to pay the cost of that card. Then later on, like when the turn cycles back around, you're going to be able to pick up the cards that you placed down previously, and they will join your hand again, which is really fascinating and really unique and really clever to allow you to see those cards turn after turn, to be able to pay for cards from your hand with cards from your hand, and yet to also pick them back up and go from that point. That is one way that this game functions uniquely from many other games. This is not a resource base where it is a resource base where every card acts as a resource, but it's not that they're acting as a resource by becoming this permanent thing on the board that you then have to tap or exert to generate resources. No, instead, they can return to your hand. There's this constant state of flux. So you have an expensive card in your hand. You're like, cool, I'll chuck it down there. I won't use it, and then it'll come back to my hand, and then I can keep doing that over and over again. But then you factor in some of the other things, like for example, in Flesh and Blood, again, there is a character that you're playing as that's out there in the field that technically just represents you and plays functionally differently from other characters in the game. You have that in this as well. You're playing as a champion, but that champion actually levels up over the course of the game, gains different abilities, gains different stats, and all things like this. And that leveling up comes from a side deck. It's a concept that many games have, a little side deck that you keep on the side and do things from. Even in Flesh and Blood, for example, you have like an equipment sideboard. That side deck can be accessed at the start of every turn, and you can actually take the cards that you've placed down as resources and get rid of them completely so you won't draw them back into your hand to play things from that little sideboard once per turn. So you can be bringing in little like equipment or little baubles or like jewelry that do things and have effects at the cost of those temporary resources finally becoming permanent resources. And these little tweaks make the game feel so much different. Even though they're small little things that you wouldn't think are that impactful, they really are, particularly when they start to add up. And in this market that is really starting to become sort of a golden age too of TCGs, you need something to differentiate yourself from the crowd so that you can say, well, first of all, my game is quality, my game functions well, come and play it. And second of all, it's really fun and it's unique to itself, right? And then finally, I think the biggest thing and the reason that I'm making this video like I am is this. The game is catching on a lot stronger than I expected it to. In a market that is really becoming saturated with TCGs and new card games, the game is catching on very quickly, and I will say this: I think it benefits from its anime TCG nature, which is a huge pull to the game. It's a huge pull. It also benefits from being first to market in a lot of ways, which is what Flesh and Blood benefited from, being first to market. In this next wave of TCGs, it's beating the Lorcanas, the Alpha Clashes, the Star Wars Unlimiteds to the market. And there's an inherent benefit from that. And it's also announcing organized play. It's also announcing prized tournaments. It's also, giving opportunities for people to come and play this game at a casual and a competitive level. So it's really trying to hit on all of these cylinders. Now, its biggest danger are exactly the TCGs I just mentioned. The game space is about to become a lot more flooded with a lot more card games. Card games like, well, I'll just say it because I'm going to talk about it later this week, Alpha Clash, which is its own unique trading card game with its own unique mechanics. It is a game that actively is going to step into the space and attempt to establish itself as well. Lorcana, Disney's Lorcana, a huge stepping point in the TCG space. It's going to try to come out, and I'm very excited for that game. And then you also look at the recent announcement of Star Wars Unlimited, a game that has the capacity based on its IP and based on its possible creation to make some waves. I mean, Star Wars is a huge IP, and the cards look like they've been well designed. So with all of these new, new trading card games coming into the market, with the influx approaching this space, which of these games will have the wherewithal and the uniqueness? I don't want to say novelty because I feel like that's the wrong phrase, truly is. Which will have the staying power in this new market and in this new space? And I think based on what I've seen thus far, Grand Archive has a lot of the really good things established. And its biggest question mark is going to be how it engages with its supply and how it engages with the LGS. Because if it can gain support from the LGS system and can have people playing weekly and have the LGS see this game as profitable, well, then there's a lot there. But if they don't have supply, or if they have too much supply, well, then you run into the issue of this game not being profitable. I'm holding on to too much supply, or there's not enough buyers, or I don't have enough supply, so I mean I can't run these events because their players can't get cards. Things like that. So those are the two real pain points that I think, every game, but particularly a game that has popped off this hotly, is going to need to navigate. And that's the big question mark for me with Grand Archive TCG. But I will say this right now. I am actively looking to buy boxes of this game and to buy singles of this game because I want to play it. And I did not think I was going to say that when I bought the one box. But that's the reality of it. I think this game does a lot right, and I am quite impressed. So there are my unfiltered thoughts on Grand Archive TCG. Take them for what they are. Take them for what it's worth. If you enjoy the video, feel free to make numbers climb slightly higher, because numbers going up, that's what cool people do. And if you didn't enjoy the video, let me know why in a comment below. Tell me what you think about Grand Archive TCG as the video scrolls by. As always, thanks for watching.